Ladies and gentlemen, Chris Gaines.
Hello and welcome to Chris Gaines, the podcast, the show where we take an exhaustive look at the career of country superstar Garth Brooks and his much maligned decision in 1999 to reveal a fictional rocker character creating R&B songs named Chris Gaines. The debut album, In the Life of Chris Gaines, was meant to be a pre-soundtrack release to a feature film entitled The Lamb, a way of letting the audience get to know the character before they went to see the movie. Despite selling 2 million copies, the album was considered a complete failure and heralded an early retirement from Brooks. I'm Michael Eades.
I'm Ashley Spurgeon.
And here we are, Chris Gaines, the podcast, episode 6.
That's a lot of episodes.
That is, and they've all been longer than we expected.
We've talked about Chris Gaines for approximately 6 hours now at this point.
Yeah.
So I guess we're pushing hour 7 of Gaines discussion.
It turns out there's a whole lot to say about Chris Gaines.
Yeah, I'm looking in front of me. Which magazine did you buy from the internet?
This is Country Weekly with the 2 faces of Garth on the cover, which is a hell of a split screen view here. We'll share this on the Twitter.
That's beautiful. Yeah, but when you've done the research like we have, you've got things to say.
Yeah, absolutely. We also now have weird memorabilia just laying about Chris Gaines.
Yeah, for sure.
Like this magazine.
I bought that Garth Brooks t-shirt for the photo shoot that we took together, and now it's just in my rotation. I just wore it to work the other day.
I mean, it's a great shirt.
You a Garth Brooks fan? No, but the quality of this cotton, I gotta tell you, it's a nice shirt.
Garth doesn't chimp out when it comes to nice shirts. We'll do a little housekeeping here at the top. Let you know that this show is brought to you by We Own This Town. You can check that out at weownthistown.net. We are on the internet at chrisgainespodcast.com and on Twitter at GarthGainesSNL, which, of course, is a handle that was chosen before this podcast was ever even thought of, because Ashley came up with the wonderful idea to just power the people to get Garth and Chris Gaines back on
together,
SNL.
To get the gang back together.
It's been 20 years.
Right? Everyone loves a remake. Everyone loves a revamp. Everyone loves sticking the pads on the old chest and just zapping it back to life.
Yeah.
That's why we have 18 more Full Houses now.
Oh, man. Thank God we have more Full Houses, Yeah, so let's get them back on there. They haven't announced yet who is going to host in November, so I'm still living on a little bit of a prayer here that maybe it can happen.
Maybe. Who knows?
By the time this episode comes out, maybe they'll have announced it and it'll be Chris Rock. But missed opportunity.
I'm just saying that if Saturday Night Live wants to expand their audience into, more nerds, this is a way to get it done.
You know what Saturday Night Live needs more of? Nerds. Yeah. Before we dive into today's subject, I wanted to cover a little bit of listener feedback that we've been receiving from the Twitter. We really love all the mentions and the @s and the likes and the DMs. It's great.
I especially like the ones that talk about how great I am.
Oh, of course.
Those really are great.
As always, we are here for validation, and it seems like we're getting it. So, Livia Komar liked 66 of our tweets.
Livia, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Livia.
It feels great. Fusilli Jerry, fantastic Twitter handle
I get
there.
That reference.
I do too. He's been talking up a storm with us. Love it. Keep it coming. Just today, during the recording of this, Jason Elliott said, "Words cannot express how excited I am to listen to Chris Gaines, the podcast."
Oh, yay.
I mean, I really hope we don't disappoint.
This is a lot of pressure, and now I hope on episode 6, hope we satisfied you, Jason.
I hope you make it to this episode and hear your name mentioned.
Yeah, that would be cool, right?
I mean, that would make anyone like the show to hear their own name, right? I would love it. I call into
Thanks
a podcast.
Thanks to you, Mary, Austin, Tiffany, Brad,
Terry,
Bradley, Grandma.
Brad and Bradley.
Yes.
Get them knocked out. Yeah. We get a couple specific pieces of feedback that I really want to talk about just very briefly. Miles Price, our wonderful photographer who did our pictures for chrisgainespodcast.com, he made a great point about the Wallflowers comparison that we did. We went off about how that Chris Gaines song sounds exactly like a Wallflowers song. Turns out that track, the Hammond B3 organ that we hear, Rami Jaffe, same guy who played on Bringing Down the Horse.
Oh my God.
Played on the Chris Gaines album.
That is amazing. Yeah. I love that. That makes me feel so good. I have a similar story where I realized one day the harmonica in the Spice Girls Say You'll Be There is the exact same as the harmonica in Karma Chameleon by Culture Club, and I'll be damned if it's not the same harmonica player, like 10 years apart, like from 84 to 96 or whatever. It's like, it's the same motherfucking harmonica guy.
Wow.
He's got a style. He's got a tone. Who is the Hammond organist?
Rami Jaffe.
I'm going to buy some Rami Jaffe records.
Yeah. So it turns out this song that we're fairly confident was probably written for the Wallflowers has a guy who played on the Wallflowers album.
Yeah.
Amazing. So
It's a small world.
Thank you for the heads up, Miles. I bet if we did a little more research into all of the players on the record, we would come up with tons of these. There's probably like 10 members of Fleetwood Mac sprinkled about the album.
It's like British actors. There's only like 15 of them. There's Timothy Spall, Helen Mirren. That's it.
Yeah. And K.M. Schneid, Kevin, I know you. He had some insight on the music journalism that we talked about. And he said music journos, especially in the 90s, I think, were so middle of the road on everything. They really only took a hard stance on very safe bets. Panning this was easy and low stakes.
100% agreed.
Yeah.
100% agreed.
Absolutely. Which was a really nice transition into this tweet stream that I saw earlier this week from Matt LeMay. Matt LeMay had a band in the early aughts called Get Him, Eat Him, I believe. But he was also a music journalist for Pitchfork.
A young man.
A young man.
Yes.
2003, writing for Pitchfork. Kind of the epitome of snarky journalism.
Actually, I think he and I are probably the same age then, because I was 19 in 2003.
Were you snarkier in 2003?
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. Yes. Yeah.
He is responsible for giving Liz Phair's self-titled album, which you may or may not remember. Liz Phair went pop. She's known for Exile in Guyville.
Here's something.
Yeah.
The pop songs are the only ones I know.
Whoa. Well.
I never listened to Liz Phair.
Aside from that being some excellent ASMR.
Whenever I think about you. That one?
No, I don't know that one.
Oh, okay.
I know Fucking Run, you know? But, you know, this is a really interesting comparison between the two. Liz Phair is known for being this indie darling, Exile in Guyville, like just like a really empowered female voice, kind of goes away for, I think, a long time between these two records and comes back as a pop individual.
Yeah, like 6 or 7 years.
Yeah. And Matt LeMay's Pitchfork review is like 0.0. Like, I can't believe she would do this to us. Just like outlandish that Liz Phair would make this jump.
Sell out.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. And to remind you all, you're listening to a Chris Gaines podcast. Garth Brooks, huge country
Literal
star.
sellout. He is the reason that terms like sellout exist, because he sells out stadiums.
But
anyway,
LeMay went on this tweet stream. There's a new Liz Phair interview on Vulture that's really interesting. She's doing a lot of great reflection on her career and like these changes through the different genres that she's gone through. And LeMay kind of calls himself out a little bit. I don't know if I should read this entire tweet stream verbatim.
You know what? Read it verbatim and then cut the parts that don't work.
Yeah, so here we go. I tremendously enjoyed this interview with Liz Phair, which has given me cause to reflect on the condescending and cringy 0.0 review I wrote way back when. In 2019, it's almost inconceivable that there would be any controversy around an established indie musician working on a radio-friendly pop album with radio-friendly pop songwriters. To a smug 19-year-old Pitchfork writer in 2003, it was just as inconceivable that an established indie artist would try to or want to make a radio-friendly pop album in the first place. The idea that indie rock and radio pop are both cultural constructs, languages to play with, masks for an artist to try on? Yeah, I certainly did not get that. Liz Phair did get that way before many of us did. It was 100% over my head that the authentic signifiers of Guyville and the inauthentic signifiers of Liz Phair were just that. Signifiers.
Yeah.
You know, like art. Which is not to say that one cannot prefer one set of signifiers over the other, or thoughtfully critique an album for using those signifiers in a more or less compelling way. But Liz Phair's self-titled album was a direct assault on the idea that indie rock is intrinsically artistic and authentic, and radio pop is intrinsically constructed and inauthentic. At the time, indie rock good/pop music bad felt like the lingua franca of people who saw ourselves as above the culture at large.
Yeah.
In retrospect, this was, of course, a reactive interpolation of the culture at large, and a pretty fucking toxic one at that. It was, in many ways, the red pill nonsense of that scene/era. The promise that young men who felt wronged by the culture at large could see through that culture to find the secret truth that evaded those less smart, male, and entitled than us. Here's the kicker. Liz Phair going pop cast a stark and damning light on the arrogance, entitlement, and condescension of indie rock dudes, which is exactly what Guyville had done a decade prior.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of reading, but whew.
Yeah, he's right. I admire and appreciate the self-reflection.
Yeah, calling himself out and being amazingly articulate about how wrong he was and why he was wrong.
Yeah. I mean, maybe don't give like 19-year-olds that much power because they don't really know what the hell they're talking about.
Right. It's funny.
You're an authority. You know what I mean? Because
Yes.
that's the thing about criticism is like any critic is the authority.
Absolutely.
Who is this critic? He's a fucking 19-year-old. It's like, I knew about this shit because like I took a theater class.
Right.
I was, you know what I mean? It's like all you need is one class.
Right. Oh, just the
You
one.
know, sometimes like, I don't know.
When it goes to the thing that you were talking about last week where, I just learned a thing, so no one else must know it yet.
Exactly.
You know? And
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
saying here, Liz Phair did get this way before many of us did. No, dude, you were 19. Like, it's not that she got it before anybody else did. Like, tons of people were on board. Lots of
Yeah.
people understood this construct.
There's a thing called academia.
Yeah.
It exists. The people in it, like they write books about stuff.
Right.
Generally. That's the MO.
Interesting. Yeah. So I think
You know?
that's a really fascinating way to contextualize the Chris Gaines thing,
Yeah.
because there was a lot of snarky journalism in 1999 and early 2000s, and there is no way that they were going to give this a chance. And these cultural constructs and these problems that LeMay was dealing with as a 19-year-old were obviously still going on for other writers just a few years prior.
Absolutely. And you want to talk signifiers, country music? Hello.
Right.
The hat, the boots, you know, come on.
I mean,
you know?
literally, when he would perform Chris Gaines songs, not as Chris Gaines, because he only did that on SNL, but when he would perform those Chris Gaines songs, he would take the hat off.
That's, oh, God.
He
Oh,
would-
put it in my fucking veins, Michael. Oh, put it in my veins. Oh, that's the good
I mean,
shit.
it was literal costume change, you know? Like, I'm not going to wear the button-up shirt with the bold colors on it. I'm just going to wear the black shirt and no cowboy hat because I'm Chris Gaines' song time right now.
I love it.
Yeah.
So good. It's so good.
Really fascinating, and it works as a phenomenal transition into what we're going to talk about today. And today is the heady episode. This is the one where we get to kind of pontificate on Chris Gaines in general.
Yeah.
We've gone through all the literal histories of the characters involved and the reception of it, but now we can talk about what the fuck was this?
Yeah.
You know? So I think we both have some theories to
Yes.
discuss. I know that mine is far more simplistic than yours because I am not as smart as you.
I
So-
took like one class, like I said. So everything I say, I don't know, Google it. There's going to be backup sources.
Well, here's the thing. I took 0 classes, so I'm not that far ahead. I breezed through college.
I do have a lot to say about heady kind of stuff and like subcultures and groups that I do not 100% belong to. But there are people wiser than me who have said much, much smarter things. That being said, everything I will say is 100% right and accurate and true today.
Yes. So today, we're going to look at some heavy topics that might require you to dig in a little deeper. We're not saying that we're experts, but Ashley is the expert.
If you're listening to episode 6 of Chris Gaines, the podcast, I feel like you were willing to do the work.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm going to start with my little simplistic thesis, and we'll.
Stop putting yourself down.
Ah, it's all right. I know what yours is, and I love it, and I look forward to understanding it more. Mine is more of a summary of the thing. It's not necessarily super insightful, but basically, my thought is that the music of the project didn't matter.
Yeah.
We both say say that it's a fantastically mediocre album, and things might be different if it had not been a fantastically mediocre album, but it's everything else around the project, beyond the music, that made it stick.
Yeah.
You know, like, we're here to discuss why Chris Gaines is a thing that we want to talk about 20 years later. How many things happened in 1999 from random musical artists or just cultural events that we don't give a shit about now?
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Chris Gaines has persevered, and it's sure as hell not because of the songs.
I was trying to think of, I was like, 99, No Scrubs? Did No Scrubs come out in 99? I think maybe that's the only other thing that comes off the top of my head.
I mean, there's definitely songs from that time that have persevered, but there aren't like the year 2000 bug. Like, that's a thing culturally that we talk about. I don't know. I'm hitting a wall trying to think of like other crazy things that happened in 99.
Yeah, I got nothing.
So I think the Chris Gaines project was born out of impatience for a movie deal. We know that Garth Brooks and Lisa Sanderson had been working on a movie deal, potentially The Lamb, for years. We only meet Chris Gaines at the end of 98 and throughout 99, but we know that this seed of an idea has been planted for many years.
Minimum of 5 years.
Absolutely.
Minimum of 5 years, Garth Brooks is going to do a movie.
Right.
Is in his head.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And he's so confident about it, he's turning down films that are insane to turn down.
That end up being some of the biggest blockbuster movies of the summer. Actually, it's like really funny, honestly.
The movie doesn't even... Spielberg offers him a role. I'll pass. I don't want to be the sniper.
That's pretty fun. That's cool.
It's insane.
That's really cool. That's honestly really cool.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's part of the perseverance. That's insane. We didn't even know that in 1999. But, I mean, that is insanely cool that happened. So they decide to make this album. They're impatient about the movie, so they're like, let's just get this album out. Why not make an album about a character? We have evidence that this has been done before successfully. Luke the Drifter, Ziggy Stardust. Kiss is characters. Like, Garth Brooks loves Kiss. Those are characters.
Yeah.
Those aren't real people. In fact, it was insane when Kiss became real people, you know?
Yeah, it was scary. And no one liked it. Everyone was like, put that shit back on. And they were like, okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So we know that characters can work in a musical framework and be successful. It's not outlandish to think that. If you're in Brooks' gang and someone says that and Brooks comes up with this idea, maybe you don't think it's crazy. Maybe you know Brooks can sing in a higher octave.
Yeah.
And why not let him stretch his wings?
You absolutely know that.
Yeah, he's an amazing
doing
performer.
It backstage. You know what?
Right.
I don't know what Garth's vocal warm-ups are, but I know he fucking does them because he's a performer and a singer and a professional.
Absolutely.
You know?
But the dichotomy and the unfortunate part of the whole thing is that they made an R&B record.
Yeah, a light R&B record.
A light R&B record from an absolutely brooding rock and roller.
Yeah.
So they cast him as angry and tortured, but he's experienced nothing but success, which we learn from his backstory. I mean, his father dies, but lots of people's parents die. Like, his house burns down, but he immediately has a house like 3 months later. Like, doesn't even lament all the things that he lost. His best friend dies, but basically that fuels his passion for the remainder of his life. He wears the ring every day. They tried to tread lightly to not be offensive. Like, one of the Gaines albums is named Fornicopia, not Pornocopia.
Yeah.
But then they made the character a sex addict.
Yeah.
So they tried to dodge this offensive thing about pornography, but then they just dove headfirst into sex addict.
And it's funny about that too, because there's so many horrible stories of all these 70s and 80s rockers and all these backstage sex stories that are just really next level shit. And it's there's none of those in the Gaines back. It's just there's lots of women. Well, that's all you need to know.
More women than you could count on one hand.
He had up to 6 women, if not more at a time. But but all of the dirty little details were album sales and things like that.
Yeah. And the arson fire.
And the arson is set fire, of course.
So I think everyone involved simply couldn't see the puzzle for the pieces.
I like that.
They built this crazy hype machine around the world's biggest country star and just kind of assumed people would come on board. But it was kind of too much. People didn't even listen to the album because they were constantly thinking, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, I mean, 2 million people bought the album, but if you didn't buy the album, you didn't listen to it because guess what? You weren't streaming it because guess what? There wasn't such a thing as streaming. Guess what? You weren't listening to it on the radio because they weren't really playing it on a couple of adult contemporary stations, but that's it.
I think that's so fascinating fascinating to think about that in 1999, the CD comes out. You can buy the CD. And then once the project tanks, because all of the reviews are this mentality of what is this? Not how is it? What is this? It gets pulled. As soon as that first run is sold, 2 million copies, which is impressive, particularly in 2019, you're not going to be able to stream that. Like, it's gone. The music doesn't matter because it's gone in the blink of an eye. Garth's second Christmas album perseveres more than Chris Gaines'.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
The Christmas album that came out 3 months after.
Right.
After the Gaines album,
Which to me is insane because that means he recorded a Christmas album while he was doing Chris Gaines.
Without a doubt, yeah.
So, granted, if the songs had been stronger, like I said, we might be living in a completely different world. Maybe it would be a utopia that I can't even imagine.
Come on, everybody.
Yeah.
Come on, people now. Yeah.
But I think the ask from the audiences wasn't about hearing new and different Brooks music. It was coming to terms with this bizarre performance. And it was just a bridge too far. I can't articulate what that performance would even be called.
Yeah.
But I think that's what it was.
It is a performance. Yeah.
So that's my thesis.
Great.
And I think it's more of a review of the things that happened. But I think it leads very nicely into your insight into how we define Chris Gaines.
So Chris Gaines, to the man on the street, I guess, is a failure. It's like, what is Chris Gaines? Well, Chris Gaines was this, if you even know what it is at all, and chances are you don't even know what the hell it is. Second chances, if you do know what it is, it's like, oh, that was the time that Garth Brooks went crazy and had this persona and this alter ego, and he was going to be a rocker, and that happened for a minute, and then, I don't know, 9/11 happened. No one really,
Right.
it's just gone from your memory. And then there are freaks like me and you, where it's like, I don't know, where Chris Gaines is a failure unless you're a person like myself, where I view the character and project of Chris Gaines as an unmitigated success. A specific kind of success. A camp success.
Oh.
Chris Gaines, the character, is a perfect camp character, is a perfect expression of the camp sensibility. It's an earnest, honest failure. It takes itself 100% deadly ass seriously, and it just doesn't work on any level, like you said. Like every part of it, the music, it doesn't work. The persona, it doesn't work. The story and the background and the timeline, it doesn't work. The musicianship is good. There's a competence to the baseline competence to everything, but then I don't know. It's like the 10th smartest kids in all the class got together. I don't know. It's just fascinating to me on a lot of levels. And I think the reason why I love the SNL episode so much is because like so much of camp and theater culture kind of go together and go hand in hand. And Garth Brooks is a live performer naturally. That's what he does when he performs as Garth Brooks. This is live on stage. Saturday Night Live on stage. Yeah. It's performance, and it's so combining his talent as like a stage performer and a singer and working a crowd and that kind of like charisma and showmanship, plus the combination of just sort of like overall theater culture and like gay culture and like camp gay culture aspects of it too. So they're all smashed together in the Saturday Night Live episode, overall in a positive way, I think. But you also have some ideas about how, I don't know, like there's the Mango bit, there's Tracy Morgan bits,
I will say, of all the things that we've seen of Chris Gaines, the most successful part of it is the Saturday Night Live performance.
Yeah.
When Garth Brooks is in the garb of Chris Gaines playing Way of the Girl, it's good. I mean, it's really theatrical. He's putting his hands dramatically up to his head. He's
slow.
Yeah. He's playing a character.
100%.
It's
100%.
And doing it very well. And the song, frankly, sounds way better on SNL than it does on the album.
Record, for sure. Yeah.
But before we get into Mango and the very troubling words of Tracy Morgan all. Is it Morgan or Jordan?
It's Tracy Morgan.
God, I get confused.
Tracy Jordan is from 30 Rock. Yeah.
Let's rewind and let the audience in on what you mean by camp.
So camp is hard to define, and like I said, I've taken like a class. Well,
you're also a student of pop culture.
I like to read. I am a student of pop culture, and I like to read. And I think the easiest thing you can look at is Susan Sontag's notes on camp. Susan Sontag, writer and academic person, and she wrote notes on camp in the early 60s. What year? 1964.
Oh, yes. The 1964 essay, Notes on Camp.
Yes.
The classic.
So are you familiar with the Met Gala? By any chance?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so the 2019 theme for the Met Gala was camp.
That was the theme for every celebrity to come dress in camp.
Exactly. And it was so her essay, Notes on Camp, was sort of like the tent pole. Like they literally used it as like, this is what we mean.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an academic essay, and it's, just sort of thoughts on a theme. And I'm going to read some of these aloud, much in the same way Michael read that Twitter thread. Now, these notes, it's kind of like a bullet list. It's literally number 1, number 2, number 3. That's just like, here are some thoughts. And this is from like 1964, and a lot of her references are way, 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 way older than that, even like 19th century and early 20th. But
academic.
I mean, academic, but at the same time, she's referencing like the Gold Diggers in 1933, 34. It's like musicals and campy stuff. Right?
Yeah.
Musical theater is campy. Is that a controversial statement? I don't really think so.
I don't think so.
So anyway, moving on. So here's one. One must distinguish between naive and deliberate camp. Pure camp is always naive. Camp, which knows itself to be camp, usually is less satisfying. Now, I sort of described this to you earlier where I was like, Rocky Horror Picture Show, deliberate camp. The Room, naive camp.
Interesting. So Rocky Horror Picture Show, which hopefully everyone has seen, clearly is a ridiculous film, and it knows it's a ridiculous film.
It's self-aware campy. It's self-aware campy, and
It's a musical theater.
Yes, boom, exactly.
The characters are insane, like stereotypes almost.
Exactly. Just think about what influenced Rocky Horror Picture Show is like all RKO radio, like campy alien movies and just sort of like B films.
And those films were made in earnest.
Absolutely.
Those films
Some
were
of them, not all of them, not 100%. But
again, I think we should be very open about the fact that when anyone talks about camp, a lot of nuance, a lot of subtlety.
And no one 100%, there were like arguments during the Met Gala. It's like, well, does this really count? What is it? It's sort of an amorphous concept to begin with. It's not like 100% black and white.
Right.
But
there's bumper bowling. There's like a little Sontag's rules kind of help form
not rules, but notes. Just like think
literal.
More,
it's called notes on camp.
Think more like ideas and observations than like guidelines.
Fair.
I guess
Yes, fair.
So pure examples of camp are unintentional. They are dead serious. She used an example of an Art Nouveau lamp and also Warner Brothers musicals from the 30s.
And you're citing The Room. Our listenership maybe references The Room as like a very serious film. Like the intent behind the film was very serious.
And the intent behind Chris Gaines was very serious. I mean, Garth Brooks went on the record multiple times to say that this is a dead-ass serious project.
Absolutely.
This is not Spinal Tap. We're not the Ruddles. We're not Spinal Tap. Like, this is a real thing.
Right.
So he's going out there to the press every day, like, saying, take me seriously. Take this seriously. This is a serious project. The CEO of Capitol Records says the goal of this is to make Garth sell 100 million more. It's like, this is real. Take it seriously.
Yeah, we have that quote from someone at Capitol who's like on the PR team saying Garth has to rein us in when we get too silly.
Yeah.
And this is a hero. I'm pretty sure the quote verbatim is, Chris Gaines is a hero, a movie star. Like, you can't get more dead serious.
And the premise of the film is he's dead already. So It's like the premise of the film is already he's dead. What's the backstory of his life? Tragedy. His father doesn't love him and now he's dead. His best friend's dead. Things like that. Number 23 in Sontag. In naive or pure camp, the essential element is seriousness, a seriousness that fails. And I mean,
we're checking boxes.
I'm just saying, when something is just bad rather than camp, it's often because it's too mediocre in its ambition. The artist hasn't attempted to do anything really outlandish.
But do you think that Garth was not being outlandish?
No, he is outlandish. That's why it works.
Yeah.
It's like the outlandishness is what makes it camp. There's nothing mediocre about the Chris Gaines project. There's there's fucking 400 people working on this at all levels. we got Babyface and his wife on deck. We've got this record company. We've got this movie company. We've
all the
got
players, all the people in the studio.
Saturday Night Live. We've got dude who voices over behind the music had to go in for 2 extra days of work to voice over a fake behind the music for Chris Gaines. So I don't think that that's a mediocre scope.
No. All right.
by any stretch of the imagination. Moving along, number 25, the hallmark of camp is the spirit of extravagance.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I'm just saying. And then it goes on. She references Gaudi buildings in Barcelona and such. But number 26, camp is art that proposes itself seriously but cannot be taken altogether seriously because it is too much.
Oh.
I mean,
wow.
I mean, that's okay. I see that. Number 30, of course, the canon of camp can change. Time has a great deal to do with it. Time may enhance what seems simply dogged or lacking in fantasy now because we're too close to it, because it resembles too closely our own everyday fantasies, fantastic nature of which we don't perceive. We're better able to enjoy a fantasy when it is not our own. So there's sort of two thoughts there. I think the first thought of that could even go back, especially to the critic whose Twitter thread you read. It's like, I've got the distance of time now between my original perceptions of this.
Right.
I almost said Elizabeth Taylor record.
Liz Phair.
Phair, yeah.
Very similar.
But yeah, so, and it's the same thing with Chris Gaines, even for me, and especially for me, because, ninth grade Ashley isn't sitting back and smoking a bubble pipe and like, ooh, the pure camp sensibility, it's
right.
like, no, this is wild, this is crazy, this is nuts, and then let me think about it for 20 years. Let me do a little research. Oh, shit, his mom was dying. Oh, shit, Babyface was involved. Right. I mean, it just keeps going. It keeps... Oh, I'm not done.
Please,
I'm
by
not
all
done.
means.
There's a few more points. This is why so many of the objects are old-fashioned, out of date. It's simply that the process of aging or deterioration provides the necessary detachment or arouses a necessary sympathy.
Oh, okay.
And I certainly am far more sympathetic to the person of Garth Brooks.
Yeah, me too.
Than I was when we started this project.
Right.
We were speaking about this beforehand. It was like, so we've got Troil Brooks,
right,
the person. We've got Garth Brooks, the persona and the famous person, with the celebrity. And then we've got the fictional character, so there's layers. So it's like Chris Gaines is a failure of the Garth Brooks career, but Chris Gaines as a character on its own, to me, is a success.
Absolutely.
Fully.
I agree. I think the sympathy nature is really interesting, given when I started this project, I thought Chris Gaines was fairly laughable in a way. Amazing and just fascinating, but also like, oh, this behind the music, he's a sex addict. That's so funny.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you look at Garth Brooks' life, he struggled with...
He did.
With having sex addict problems. Chris Gaines' father dies. Garth Brooks' mother dies.
Yeah.
Garth Brooks lost two friends in college to tragedies.
Chris Gaines, when he was 19, lost his best friend. Yeah, exactly.
Chris Gaines, despite his success, is shown as being struggling with the music industry. We heard how Garth tried to come to Nashville multiple times to live his dream and ate shit.
One didn't even make it 24 hours in one case. Yeah.
So all those things are, I feel, sympathetic.
Absolutely.
Like, you understand Chris Gaines and where that kernel came from. It's not just some dumb idea like, oh, he's a sex addict.
Well, it is partially that, I think.
Mean, it is, but it comes from a true place.
Yeah, absolutely.
It comes from
It all does, yeah.
Right. It's an artist kind of expressing himself to work out his shit.
I mean, there's no such thing as art that can really come from an untrue place unless you're lying to yourself. You know what I mean?
But even that's true.
Yeah.
If you're lying to yourself and
that's true.
You don't even know.
Ooh, what? We spoke, I guess, in maybe even the first or second episode about this, how one reason why it's so much funner and easier to talk about Chris Gaines now is sort of the culture's moved on from snark, the Pitchfork 0.0, that sort of mode of judgment and criticism is a bit passé now, and people are looking at things a bit differently. Oh, look at number 55 and notes on camp. Camp taste is above all a mode of enjoyment, of appreciation, not judgment. Camp is generous. It wants to enjoy. It only seems like malice or cynicism. So, yeah, and that's sort of the fun little bitchiness where it's where we're doing this and we're making jokes. You know what I mean? It is, but it comes from a place of love.
Absolutely.
It really, really does.
So in camp, more examples of camp, I think drag culture is often steeped in camp.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
You have drag personas.
Think about what is a drag queen. What is a drag queen?
A drag queen is playing the part of a woman,
exactly.
generally way over the top.
Exactly. It's woman in quotation marks.
Right.
I'm a woman. This is femininity.
Right.
That's great. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. That's why it's fun. It's so good. It's so good.
Absolutely.
Drag King, same way. Oh my God. Yeah, camp, what it does is to find the success in certain passionate failures.
Let's sit on that for a second. That feels good.
Yeah.
What it does is find the success in certain passionate failures.
I think passionate failure is the Chris Gaines story.
Yeah.
Truly. It really, really is. Really, really is. It's a love. Camp taste is a kind of love for human nature. It relishes rather than judges the little triumphs and awkward intensities of, quote, character. Mm-hmm.
So I think it's clear that Chris Gaines is camp.
Oh, yeah.
But worth noting, accidental camp.
Pure camp. Pure camp.
Not even trying to be camp.
The stuff that you like chop up and snort. Like, seriously, the put it in my veins camp. Like, that's why it works so good. Passionate, dead-ass serious, unintentional, world-level, catastrophic failure. One of the top Western entertainers of the 20th century.
Yeah.
I'm a fan.
It's
fan.
amazing. And it's incredible that failure is what makes it a success. Which is
exactly.
It's such a kind of like a hard thing to wrap your brain around that the failure equates it to its perseverance. But it's exactly that.
Yeah.
Totally. This is why your theory is so much smarter. This is
Well, I mean, I just calls them like a sees them. Honestly, when I opened up notes on camp and just started reading through, and I was like, boom, 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 boom. Like I said, it's not a one-to-one thing. She talks a lot. There's a lot of Art Nouveau architecture and stuff in here.
But she even says that camp changes over time. That her notes on it, which are not guidelines, notes, are bound to change.
Yeah. And I just feel like the culmination of the Gaines character on Saturday Night Live, so in the a live theater context, is just the perfect showcase for that character and Garth Brooks himself, who is really, really great on the show.
Really
just a really, really great performer and game.
Totally game. Like, he's legit funny and acts very well. Like, he definitely could be a movie star, I think, even now. Like, he's funny. He's a good actor. Him in the Devil Can't Write No Love Song sketch, he's funny. He's playing a straight man.
That's a 6-minute sketch.
And it doesn't lag.
It doesn't.
Good.
I know. I thought the same thing.
Yeah.
I thought, before I opened, I was like, oh God, I don't remember this being 6 minutes long. And I was like, oh, that did not feel like a 6-minute sketch.
Yeah. The only problematic part of the SNL episode is the Tracy Morgan bit where you have Garth does a sketch with whatever the Jersey teens, right? The Boston teens. The Boston teens, which is their first appearance on Saturday Night Live, is with Garth Brooks. And then it kind of cuts to this backstage thing with Tracy Morgan talking to Garth Brooks about Chris Gaines, saying that have you seen the musical Guest this week? And he's being massively homophobic.
Extremely. Yeah.
And Garth is kind of taking it, and it just rubs me the wrong way. Maybe it's 2019, maybe it's 20 years, maybe our culture is a little more, thank God, more open and accepting of homosexuality now, but that part sucks.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to, it wasn't, history is never that long ago. I had a grandpa that was born in 1914.
Right.
You know what I mean? I had a grandpa that was an adult during the Depression. The Civil Rights era. My mom was born when there were segregated drinking fountains.
Right.
1999 was not that long,
No, definitely not.
Gay people could get married in 1999.
No.
Don't Ask, Don't Tell is a thing in 1999. It was not that long ago.
Absolutely.
It really, really wasn't. And that was a huge part of the humor. And it's honestly that oh God, that's a whole fucking other podcast of comedy culture and bro comedy culture and homophobic comedy culture. I mean, still, literally to this day, I literally just watched a thing with Kevin Hart talking over Lil Nas X about why is it a big deal that you're gay? It's not a big deal. It's he was super hella extremely defensive out of absolutely nowhere immediately, trying to act more woke than he is, Wow. And then Lil Nas X was well, it's a big deal because it's a big deal. And it's a big deal in large part because of honestly, people like Kevin Hart, comedians like Kevin Hart making those kinds of jokes, comedians like Tracy Morgan making those kinds of jokes. I was at the Ryman show.
The infamous Ryman show.
I was at the infamous Ryman show where Tracy Morgan had, I don't even remember how it was portrayed. I don't 100% remember it. It was like he got into a thing with a gay audience member and was like, oh, if my son was gay, I'd kill him or something. I don't even 100% remember what it was.
Right.
But I remember being in the room. The audience member was in the front and I was towards the back. And being in the room, it didn't seem like that big of a thing. I could not 100% hear what was going on. It wasn't even really out of line with a lot of his humor that he was already telling jokes about that evening. And I'll tell you another thing, it didn't go over well in the room. It didn't go over well in the room at all. It's not
That's
like
good.
he said that and it was like a huge fucking laugh line. It was a weird, awkward moment. And then honestly, the show kind of moved on.
Yeah.
And then he's pulled off 30 Rock. There's a 30 Rock episode about, you know what I mean? It's like he had to disappear for a while. Not uncommon amongst comics.
Yeah, I mean, I thought my issues with Saturday Night Live would be the Mango character, because Mango, I feel, is such a stereotype of homosexuality and kind of...
Yeah.
It feels borderline.
I don't know. Chris Kattan's entire tenure on that show could also be a podcast of its own.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, man.
But in reflection, Mango's not so bad. Tracy Morgan is very upsetting.
Mango was everyone's in love with Mango. That was the joke of Mango, was everyone wanted Mango, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But we're getting a little off topic. We're talking about the camp of Chris Gaines and how it was a success due to its failure, and how camp is inherently theatrical. We've talked about this in previous episodes, and I'd like to lightly talk about it again, is the artifice of performance.
Yeah.
And how we know Garth Brooks is Troyal Garth Brooks. Mm-hmm. In reality, he may have always been called Garth, but he's Troyal Garth Brooks. That's the real person.
Yeah.
And then when he performs, he's Garth Brooks. Mm-hmm. Like, maybe it's not a far cry from who he is backstage or who he is off screen or whatever, but he's performing.
Absolutely.
Every performer is performing.
And you don't want to see a performer that's not.
Right. Absolutely.
It's going to be boring and shitty.
Like if you're having a bad day and then there's a crowd out there, it could be 50 people, it could be 10,000.
Yeah.
Turn it on. You have to put this mask on and go perform.
I didn't want to record yesterday because I wasn't feeling up to it. And I was like, I couldn't do the mask. Let's postpone. Like, let's do 10:30 in the morning instead. Yeah.
So Chris Gaines is just a mask. It's another way.
Another mask, exactly.
Yeah.
Think about, what is the little sock and buskin? That's the name of the tragedy and comedy masks that were to represent theater. Yeah. Comedy and tragedy. They're called sock and buskin. It's named after different shoes that Greek actors wore on stage, depending on if they were doing a comic or a tragic play. That's something I learned in literally 10th grade.
Once again. You have trounced me in the intelligence department. My brain holds certain
things. Sock and buskin is just something that really glommed onto my synapses.
You saw my face drop when you said that. No clue what those words were.
But to the Greeks, literal mask. And I only really know the Western tradition. But if you look at Japanese theater or anything, it's all the same.
Yeah,
it's all the same. Religious, spiritual, any sort of thing where it's like, oh, you're a shaman, but now you're a bear. Same thing. It's all the same thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Heady stuff.
Thanks.
Yeah. But I think it's interesting that you have Garth Brooks, who is a performer of Troyal. You have Chris Gaines, who is a performer of Garth, another level deeper. But you accept Garth when he's on Saturday Night Live doing a WXLU hilarious sketch, like one of the best.
The morning, the redo, yeah.
Unsung hilarity of that episode. You accept him from that because you're in on it. Like, he's acting. He's the host of Saturday Night Live. Of course, he's not seriously being Mel from WXLU. But when he tries this seriousness of Chris Gaines, we're out.
Yeah, because it's too serious.
It's too serious.
It's the songs don't work.
They're also too serious. Maybe, right?
The songs are all way too serious and based on fictional movies.
Right.
Or, it just keeps going. It just keeps going. And keep in mind, at what point do they know the movie's not happening is what I want to know too. At what point do they know the movie? Is Garth still approaching this performance with okay, these are all the people who are going to go see the movie. I want to make sure that they really know this character. You know what I mean? Or at this point, is it just does everyone know this is not happening?
There's no way.
There's no turning back.
There's no way for us to know.
Yeah.
But I would go ahead and just make up a scenario and say, by his appearance in November, he knows that people are not picking up on this.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, he
it's
does
not
that
going
much
well.
for sure.
But it could also be a fire under him to like really nail this performance and really come out blazing as Chris Gaines, because he's been on Conan, he's been on Leno, and did not dress as Gaines.
Yeah.
And said specifically, this is not a character I want to dress as unless it was Saturday Night Live, and then it makes sense. It's because the artifice is there.
Exactly. So Garth gets it too.
Garth
Garth gets it too. That's the thing that people need to understand, I feel like, is Garth fucking gets it too.
I'm just talking about the movie part of it.
Yeah.
Maybe that was his last-ditch effort to be like, hey, Paramount, look, it works. It's cool. People are going to love this episode. Because we found articles that say Jeb Stewart's back on board writing. Like, even though the thing is tanked. And Lisa Sanderson doesn't sue him till like 2013.
Yeah, like
there's years between.
12 years later, yeah. It was funny. I had actually misremembered the episode. I had misremembered that Old French Whore was in this one, but that was a previous.
It was a previous one where Garth Brooks performed, hosted and performed.
Yes.
And he was great. Old French Horror is a great sketch. Yeah.
He should be on Saturday Night Live way more often than Alec Baldwin.
Absolutely.
Oh, God. Yeah. Oh, God. New goal for this podcast. I should be in charge of Saturday Night Live. Lorne Michaels should give me the show.
Yeah.
I feel like that would be a good move for everyone. Guess what my first episode would be?
Garth Brooks?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Remember, that anniversary is coming right up.
Oh, just around the corner.
Just around
September
the corner.
28th.
That's the album. November 13th.
Oh, yes.
Was so we got till mid-November.
We have multiple Gaines anniversaries.
Absolutely. I don't know if there's much more for us to say about the cultural impact and just sort of, I don't know, the weight of Chris Gaines and how it's persevered. I think it's accidental. Massively successful camp is the best way to put it.
I've just identified that as the reason why I like Chris Gaines. So it's the same reason I like when Sharon Stone's husband got his toe bit by the Komodo dragon. It's the same reason I like when Fabio got hit in the face by a goose.
Yeah.
I like it when Garth Brooks did Chris Gaines, especially on SNL, because what the hell? I love it. It's so pure.
Success through failure is unbelievable.
Mm-hmm. It's in many ways my favorite kind of success. At least for me to enjoy. It's more, that's more fun to me than, I don't know, Avatar. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you want to wrap it up?
Let's wrap it up.
All right. Well, thank you so much for listening. You can follow us at Garth Gaines SNL on Twitter. We are at chrisgainespodcast.com. We appreciate everyone for listening and for contacting us. I think we got one more to go.
Yeah.
Because there's not a whole lot more to say about Chris Gaines.
This is it. We're rounding the bend.
If you feel differently about the camp success of Chris Gaines, try and get at us, but we're right.
Yes, 100% right.
100% right. Thank you so much.